Okay, this will be the final video, video number 10, covering chapter 10 of the Spark book titled The Regimen Build Your Brain. So, as always, we give an introduction, restate the three main points, and then give an application at the end. So, my first point will be the mind follows the body. The second point will be ancestral times applied practically. And then the third and final point will be building a regimen. So, as a general introduction, after reading the entire book, and as a general thesis statement, the author suggests that exercise is the single most powerful tool that you have to optimize your brain function. And that is based on evidence that the author has gathered from hundreds and hundreds of research articles. So that is the general thesis that we see practically throughout the entire book. As a segue into point number one, again titled The Mind Follows the Body, we don't need to rely exclusively on neuroscientists to get started. So there are two main components that the author states from this. One is that there are certain conclusions that we can draw from the work of neuroscientists, what work neuroscientists have already done. And number two, scientific evidence from other fields stemming from kinesiologists to epidemiologists or neuroscientists that all show the same thing. And that same thing is that the better your fitness levels are, the better your brain works. So from that, how much exercise should we do? The best approach is to get fit and then to continue challenging themselves, as the author suggests. The prescription for how to do that is obviously going to vary from person to person because everyone has differing fitness levels and starting points. But the research consistently shows that the more fit you are, the more resilient your brain becomes, and the better it functions cognitively and psychologically. So if you get your body in shape, your mind will follow it. Finally, this does not mean that we need to look like models, underwear models, to reap the benefits of the physiological and psychological changes in the mind. In fact, most of the exercise prescriptions used in these studies is walking. So the body and brain are connected. So why not take care of both the body and the mind? So moving into point number two, ancestral times applied practically. Biologist Bern Hendrik, according to the book, describes the human species as endurance predators. So the genes that govern our bodies today evolved hundreds of thousands of years ago while we were in a constant motion. So while our ancestors were either foraging for food or chasing antelopes for hours a day across the plains, and even though antelope are among the fastest animals, our ancestors were able to drag them down by mere exhaustion. So keeping them on their tails until they had no energy left to escape. So today, obviously with changing technology and change of times, there's no need to forage and hunt to survive. Yet our genes are coded for this activity. And these are genes that we live with today. And our brains are meant to direct it. So if you take that away, that physical activity, then you are disrupting a delicate biological balance that has been fine-tuned for over 500,000 years. So thus, what we need to do is to engage our endurance metabolism to keep our bodies and brains in optimum condition. So that keeps us on moving on to point number three, which is building a regimen. So the book gave an extremely applicable real-world scenario. So how to go about this practically. So once a previously sedentary or close to sedentary individual begins to exercise, the book suggests that you start slowly and build your way up. So thus, you begin by walking. So once you work up to an hour at a pace just above where you can carry on a conversation, you're ready to add in more moderate intensity exercise. So when you challenge yourself at that level, you'll be able to do more not only while you're working out, but also in every domain of your entire life. So once you move into moderate intensity activity, which is essentially between 65 and 75% of your maximum heart rate, your body shifts from burning fat alone to actually burning glucose as well, which creates micro tears and unveils several beneficial physiological processes that enhance overall well-being. And then finally, at high intensity, which is essentially quantified as being 75 to 90% of your maximum heart rate, your body enters into a full-fledged state of emergency, and is generally where your body shifts from aerobic to anaerobic. So at this particular point, a really important process happens. It is that the pituitary gland releases HGH, or human growth hormone, which helps directly with stalling the aging process. So finally, just to wrap this final video up, we give an application. So practically speaking, as mentioned by the author while describing the necessity for exercise relative to brain function, he states that the ancient rhythms of activity ingrained in our DNA translate roughly to the varied intensity of walking, jogging, running, and sprinting. In broad strokes, the best advice may be to follow our ancestors' routine. Walk or jog every day, run a couple of times per week, and sprint every now and again. These can be helpful in gauging intensity and exertion, but also serve as a stepping stool for understanding progressive overload and the process by which we get better. So from the perspective of, yes, a strength conditioning coach, but also as just someone who's physically active, that might not be the most terrible starting point for someone who's completely or almost completely sedentary. It's a very, very good starting point.